first meet the candidates forum. Today we want to give a special thanks out to BMU, Bryan Times, and Stony Ridge. And just a reminder that the BMU Channel 4 will be replaying these events over and over again. Just keep an eye out on their Facebook page or their Channel 3 for those announcements of when they will be replayed. And we will also be announcing those replays on the Chamber Facebook page. I would like to turn it over to our panelists here in a minute, but I would like to introduce them first. We have in the tie over there, first Vice President of the Chamber and our Governmental Affairs Chairman, Bob Golding. And then next to him is our Assistant Editor of the Bryan Times, Ron Osborne. And they are our panelists today, and I'll turn it over to them to begin.
Good. First of all, let me say thank you guys for coming and appearing. Jim's here, even though he's unopposed, he's here, and you two. You are a serving member, I believe, right now, incumbent member, first term right now, and running for your second term. And then Annette, you're a first-time candidate.
Yes, I am.
Thank you guys for coming here. I think we'd ask you guys to kind of, and we'll start at Jim and go down the line, just say a little bit about yourself from off the sheet there.
All right. My name's Jim Salisbury. I'm 68 years old. Lifelong resident of Bryan. Currently retired. I've been retired since 2012. My wife Sherry and I, we have 2 children. My daughter Brittany lives in Cleveland. My son Joshua lives in Fort Collins, Colorado. The office I'm running for is the unexpired 2-year term, which will end in
That was vacated by Bob.
Yes, that's
Bob
right.
Iyer, correct.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Annette Schreiner. I currently work for Paulding Putnam Electric Cooperative in Paulding, Ohio. I have been there for 8 years now. My title is I am the accounting manager. I manage 4 people. Family, I have my mom, Darlene. She lives in Eden. I have 2 children, Bryan Schreiner, who is married to Michael, and they live in Kansas City, Kansas. He is a teacher, and she is also a teacher. I have a daughter, Rachel Lease, who is married to Leo, and they currently live in Chicago, Illinois. My daughter is in HR at where she is employed at. I am running for one of the 2 seats on the Bryan Board of Public Affairs.
Thank you. Derek?
My name is Derek Allen. I got a couple jobs here. I guess my full-time job, I work at Current Office Solutions doing accounting. I've been there for about 11 years now. I'm also a firefighter and EMT for the city of Bryan. And I am currently serving on the Board of Public Affairs right now. I'm also on the Board of Directors for the Chamber. And I'm sure there's something else I'm missing, but that's for the most of it. Family, I'm currently engaged and getting married next August. No kids, just a dog and a cat, so keeps me a little busy. But and I'm currently running for the Board of Public Affairs re-election.
All right.
Thank you.
So now we will get into some actual questions. How about that? You're each going to get an opportunity to answer it. Jim, you don't really have to, except if you want to. But
Okay.
there's been talk that BMU services some areas outside the city limits proper, some subdivisions and some little areas there that are not represented on the BPA board. Do you have any thoughts about that? It would require a change to the city charter to do anything about it, but they are unrepresented.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I'll start with that. It is a consumer-owned utility company, so I do believe they still have a voice because we do service them. Now they do live outside the city limits. Now whether we provide electric, water or sewer, whatever it might be, I still think they have a voice. It can still come to the board, and we'll still take them seriously.
Yeah, I do know that there is certain subdivisions, like Derek mentioned, that don't have representation, and they can come to a board and voice their opinion, or even call one of the current board members and have something to be brought to the attention of someone.
I think
there's areas that have annexed or petitioned for service, and I mean it was their choice. The city charter controls whether they're eligible to run for the board or not. And I guess if there would be a change in the charter, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Like I say, it was their choice to petition for the service, and I assume that the service is more reliable and probably more economical, or they wouldn't have bothered because they had service previously. So, but no, it's the way it is, I guess. If it was to be changed, that'd be fine.
Get to know you a little bit better. And that, tell us a little bit about your background and why you think specific instances of your background is a good fit for BPA. What's your motivation for running, let's say?
Like I said, I currently work for an electric cooperative. I have been there for 8 years. Last 3 years, I've been promoted to the accounting manager. Previously, before that, I worked 26 years at a glass manufacturer in Antwerp, Ohio, and worked my way up from inventory clerk to the controller job, and left there because this opportunity came up. In my current position, I manage 4 people. I do all kinds of accounting entries, general ledger, make sure the financials are out to our current board, on a timely basis. I do budget, where I'm actually in the process of doing our budget right now. We have to have our preliminaries done by Friday, I think it is. I know a lot about the electric service because that's obviously where I work, so I know the ins and outs of a cost of service study. I know about rates. I know about what it's like to put consumers first, and just I feel I have a variety of knowledge and experience that I feel like I could serve this board well. Plus, as also a upside also to it is that being on a board would also give me the experience of what our board expects, so I can maybe help them also on information that they may want.
I'm going to interrupt. The microphones are picking us up fine for the TV, but our audience out here I don't think can hear what we're saying. So I'm going to ask you all to speak up a little bit so our audience members can hear what we're saying. Our microphones can be adjusted over there, but we can't adjust their hearing out there.
Fair enough.
So if you could speak up a little bit, that'd be great.
Let me follow up because you said you work for Paulding Electric Co-op. Is that could that be considered a competitor to BMU services?
No, but it is a cooperative. We only serve rural areas. So that's the difference. Is that we serve rural areas in Paulding, Putnam, Van Wert, Defiance, a little bit of Defiance, and in and around the New Haven area.
Would there be any instance where you think you might have to recuse yourself? Do you anticipate anything? Have you looked into that where there might be conflict of interest?
I don't think so. I mean, because I know what it's like to do strategic planning, and I have read that that they do a strategic plan for the BMU for the. I've experienced. I'm actually being in my position now. I partake in the strategic planning. Like I said, I also do budgets. I know what it's like to gather information for a construction work plan, for a 4-year construction work plan. I know what goes into what information needs to be looked up to give to the process engineer company that we particularly hire to get them the information they need to come up with a construction work plan. I work with our work orders and closing and working with payroll. I know all of the payroll filings, and I do the quarterly statements, and I do end of the year processes for W-2s and file all the reports through the government. So I have a vast array of experience, not just all over, but just just learned a lot more even with working with the electric cooperative and about the poles and the wires and just like cost of service study and stuff like that.
So far, there'd be no issues of.
I really don't think so because I don't. That's in Paulding County. I live in Bryan, so there's really no.
Can I follow up on that slightly? Have you signed any NDAs or confidentiality agreements as part of your current job?
No.
Eric,
Yes.
I think you should explain to us what your background is and why you want to remain.
My background is mostly accounting, is what I've been doing for the past 11 years. But I'm just really community driven, and I seen the opportunity when the board was looking for a new member that I just wanted to be more involved in the community. And I don't really have a utility side background other than the firefighting experience with the water lines and that sort of thing. But so far, I joined back in February when they appointed me, and I've been learning ever since. It's a complex system, and it's an interesting system, to say the least. So I'm always learning, and I guess that'll never stop. But I like to help out the people the best I can, and being a consumer of the utility company in BMU, to say the least. It's nice to have a voice and an opinion about what goes on in the city.
Are there any conflicts between your job and BMU?
No, actually, when I was appointed, Rhonda Fisher looked into it with me working at current office and that sort of thing. Rhonda concluded that there was no, I guess sort of say, problems with me being on the board and working out there as well.
Involved Jim here. You've been on
Mm-hmm.
the BPA for how long?
It'll be 6 years the end of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of your accomplishments in that time?
Oh.
Putting you on the spot, Jim.
Yeah, a little bit.
Board's accomplishments that you're
Probably
proud
the
of.
thing that I bring up the most is the part we played in purchasing the industrial park north. It seemed, well, when I started my career with the utility, I remember when they built the existing industrial park. And not to criticize anybody, but it was set up to where it was restrictive to certain industry to come in because of the size of the lots. The utilities were overhead as opposed to underground. And it wasn't long after I first got on the board that they talked about this, but the utility couldn't do it alone, and the city couldn't do it alone. So we were able to work together and make this thing happen. And even though it hasn't really come to fruition yet, we've had some lookers, and I'm hopeful. I'm positive that the day will come that we'll be glad that we did that.
Don't have anything to announce today, do you?
No, not today. Hopefully soon.
Okay.
I'm going to follow up with that question.
Sure.
What particular challenges do you guys, both of you that have been on the board, what do you see in the next several years coming for BMU? And maybe there are not many challenges coming. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that, and then.
I think there are quite a few challenges, honestly. A lot of things go on behind the doors that the community doesn't realize that actually happens. But right now, the biggest thing I've been seeing is the lack of internet service that we've been providing, which is not necessarily a BMU problem, it's our provider. But that's a problem that we need to deal with in the future, along with some TV outages and that sort of thing. So, but there's some big projects coming up, and there always is. So I believe every day is a different challenge.
Okay.
So we don't want to leave you out if you know of a challenge.
Yes.
For BMU.
I apologize. I didn't want to leave you out though, but.
Well, yeah, there's always challenges. I mean, to keep the rates reasonable. It's like trying to predict the future a lot of times because you just never know, and then things always pop up. I guess probably the thing that sticks in my mind most is a little bit about what Derek touched on is the cable TV and the internet's. I want to say it's reliable, but the cable system is a challenge in that it seems like we're always dealing with price increases, and that's one of the things that makes it difficult to be a board member, being that the utility offers all these services, and you're always dealing with either electric, the water, or the cable, and it seems like there's always something to be considered with one of them. The point I guess I was trying to make with the cable end of it is the cable channels. Being that we're a not-for-profit, we keep things as close to even as we can. But it seems like every time we turn around, the broadcasters are raising their rates, and it seems they don't raise them just a little. if they can't raise them considerable, they don't bother. And it's difficult for me to swallow sometimes because people who live in the country or anybody that has an antenna can pick up the channel for free. And we take the channel and we promote it. I mean, we promote their commercials, we promote everything about the channel, but we have to pay, I won't say an exorbitant amount, but they're quick to get their piece of the pie.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up because we wanted to ask all of you, do you believe that BMU should be in the cable TV business and or be in the internet business? It's not a particularly common thing for cities to be doing. It seems that with the rise of streaming, you know, the price keeps going up on cable because their revenue drops.
Mhm.
And you know, personally, it's of concern just because I don't want to be the last people making buggy harnesses. You know, that we're the last city providing an expensive service that less and less people need. So let's go down the road.
Yeah, I'll build on top of that, I suppose. BMU does offer all these services, and it is, like Jim said, we're a nonprofit. I mean, it's a consumer-owned utility, so we only pay we only make you guys pay what you need to make everything go around and around. But is it a future? Like Bob said, everybody's streaming, so I don't see our internet going anywhere. We actually increased internet customers when we updated our internet capabilities. So we're actually seeing a trend go upward, not downward on that side. Cable's probably a different story. I think there'll be a time when it'll just be too expensive for us to carry it and not enough customers to want to pay that amount. So if there's more customers that drop off, obviously the cost of service goes up, and that'll just lead to eventually closing shop on that.
Do you have any idea of a time frame on that?
No, I wish I knew, honestly, so we could predict this a little better. But Kevin, the director of utilities, probably has a better understanding of that since he's been in the industry a lot longer. But who knows? It depends when people are going to say enough is enough, and we have to pass along those rate increases. As terrible as it is, the BMU can't lose money. That doesn't work, so we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully we'll find a better solution for it.
Do you think we should be in the cable business? Do you think we should be in the internet business?
Definitely yes on the internet business. I actually have all of the services, and do watch, the stream Netflix and stuff like that. So yes, and of course have my computer at home. And so yes, I definitely think that it should be in the internet business. The cable business, I'm like, I basically just watch what they call Amish TV. So, I would not have an issue of just throwing up an antenna and getting what I could over the air. Because I have seen that price go up quite a bit. It just seems like it, and I understand why it goes up. Because, like I said, I do that kind of stuff at work, so I understand why it has to go up. But I think it's going to eventually outprice itself, and people are just going to want to not pay for the cable TV.
Jim, do you have a comment as to whether we should be in the cable business?
And that stole my idea. It's true. I think, in my opinion anyway, I think the internet will always be there. The cable end of it will be a challenge, and it's not that I think or I hope that it'll go away. I think as long as it's practical to continue the service, I think it will. I mean, it's to say that it's going to last forever, or if it's ever going to go away, it's like predicting the future, and that's an impossibility. But I think if nothing else, it served the purpose when it was first started. That the cable system that was serving the area at the time. A lot of people were complaining, but I think a lot of it was falling on deaf ears. So when they started the cable system, just the matter that they gave people a choice, I think it woke up the other guys, and if nothing else, it caused them to pay attention. And plus, I think we've got a department full of excellent employees. and they work really hard to present a quality product and to keep the cost as low as we can.
Some of those are right behind this cameras right here, correct?
Mhm, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Can
we
I,
appreciate having
Yeah,
those
if they ever
guys.
heard me, yeah.
We appreciate having them. So sorry.
Annette?
I just have something else to add. I mean, I remember when I first got the cable and it had the Fort Wayne channels and the Toledo stations and I really enjoyed having it. And then obviously as the broadcast prices have to go up, and of course they get too expensive and you have to drop the different channels. I miss having all the channels, I guess, but I realize it's too expensive to carry to be able to do all of that.
You anticipate having to make a decision about cable in your next term? Jim, Derek?
I don't believe so at this time, unless the rates go up and we have to pass along to those consumers. That's probably the only thing we
Yeah.
might do this year or into 2020. But we hope we can keep customers on the service and provide a quality product. And with the BMU, those guys back there, we do so much more than just providing TV to watch all the sports games. What these guys are doing right now, I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's a good service that they provide to Bryan as well.
And that's a 4-year term, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. What do you say, Jim?
I don't. It's hard to say. I don't think it'll go away. I think.
I mean, 4 years is a long term not to have
It
another
is. It
price
is.
increase along the way.
It is. I guess I kind of feel that if anything does happen to the cable side of it, it won't be. Well, I guess I could say it won't be by anything we did or anything we did wrong. I think the young people nowadays, like you said, neither one of my kids have cable. They have internet, but they don't have cable. I guess you have fewer customers, the price goes up. For whatever reason, the price goes up. And if there's anything, I think that'll close it, it'll be that. They'll just, they'll leave us no choice. But I don't see that now.
Anything you want to add to that?
Not right now.
Okay. Something that was touched on earlier, you brought up the North Industrial Park, and so development is a part of BMU. Right? I'm a customer of that right now at the moment, professionally. And so what is your understanding of the readiness of these sites? The east, the north side, are they shovel ready? Are they not shovel ready? Is there anything that could be done or should be done by BMU right now to encourage development?
Is that for me?
Sure.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean,
it
it was prepared before it was even really presented because there's permits you have to get. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through before you can make the ground available. The roads, the water, access to electricity, a big enough supply of electricity and water, I guess you'd say, and then you put it out on the internet, and it's been advertised. I mean, it's out there.
You said you've had some nibbles, but nobody's taken the bait, right? So,
Well,
is there anything...
it's a big world out there, and there's a lot of competition. And I mean, there's so many things that come into play on that. Location, access to turnpike, just a lot of different things, and it's tough. I mean, if you get 5 or 6 different candidates for an industry, it seems like there's always at least one thing that makes one place look special. So that's.
Is there anything that the city or BMU can do to be more special?
I don't know of anything that we haven't done. I think we've done our best to make it ready to go, and it is shovel ready. It's, yeah.
Derek, since you're familiar with this, I'll let you go next as a current board member.
Yeah, so what the city is already doing out by Davlin, of course, by Best One, that area right there, that road's going in right there as well. So all those lots behind there are for sale, of course. And that road will only help access to those lots as well. So, and the city acquired that mostly through grants, which is awesome because we didn't have to pay much for it. So there is kind of some things being done that will help those lots sell. Now you talk about the North Industrial Drive. You have S&S that's moving in there right now, which is great. BMU and the city negotiated with them, and he chose Bryan, Ohio. Now that's the only one I've been on, but I'm sure there's been other negotiations where some might have fell through for whatever reason. I believe we have a good location being close to that turnpike, and our electric rates are very competitive, and we can provide service to most industrial places that need large voltage. So I believe we're doing everything. It's just who wants to build the building next.
And that, given your experience at another BMU type organization, what do you think can be done to encourage development?
Well, like for us, there's an area around the New Haven area that has a lot of potential, and there have been several companies looking at developing there, so that could be huge for us because Paulding Putnam serves that particular area. So,
Did they get one of the companies that didn't bite for us? Did you steal one?
and it's right there by the 469 bypass and stuff like that, right outside of New Haven. So that's a big 469 area is really big for truck stops and stuff like that, hotels and stuff like that. So that's the area that that we serve. Plus we have their industrial park over there that's out on I believe it's Ryan Road, and we serve all of those out there. So there are we have beefed up substations to ready to serve, just like you want this empty land, well, you got the power to give it to you to provide the power for you that you need.
As I understand it, the state almost demands that you have shovel-ready sites in order to advertise it.
Yeah, we did. Correct me if I'm wrong. By Best One, those are shovel-ready sites
Yes.
approved by the state.
Yes.
I mean, they're ready to go. They're
And what does that mean? Electric service, infrastructure, roads. That's all that?
it all has to be there and it all has to be ready. Maybe Jim can explain.
Yeah,
a
there's
little more, 'cause he was-
anything they require, they have access to
Yeah.
out there. I mean, because the industry requires higher voltage, large quantities of water, access. There's a road in the process of going in.
with the new water line and
Yeah.
fire hydrants, and I mean, there's a lot being done out there, so it'll be ready.
In a way, you're doing it on spec because you're providing that infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
believing or knowing from past experience what a business would need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rather than clearing off the land and wait
Yeah.
for them to tell you.
You're right.
So, yeah.
Well, plus those are bigger lots, so we're hoping to attract some larger industry than what we have in the other industrial park. So even though it's a big chunk of ground, hopefully it'll you never know. Maybe it'll turn out to be one lot. You never know.
You brought something up that we were going to discuss anyway, that Bryan, to our knowledge, is the biggest user of water in the aquifer. And some of these places may want a bunch of water, and we just went through this very heated water issue about large uses of water. And so what is BMU EPA doing or should do to protect the groundwater? What is your feelings about a large bottling plant, brewery, something that takes, let's just say, 5 million gallons a day going into the industrial park?
That
Go
is,
this way, I guess.
yeah, that's a lot of water to use. 5 million gallons a day. It's quite a bit. We've been in the water game for a long time, and we've been monitoring water levels for 50 plus years. It's not anything new that we don't know the water levels, and we can continue to monitor them. And right now, we're going through a study right now that'll kind of tell us pathways and waterways to be able to predict how much future water we're going to have and that sort of thing when the old Kidston came to town. So can we support it? I believe we can. It's just a matter of having the studies done and making sure we're making an educated decision if there was something like that. Now, the other side of it is we can bring in this big business, draw a lot of water, but you might make some people mad by drawing that much water. And nobody ever wants to run dry is the other thing. So if it was to go out there, it would definitely be by the Best One area. and you do have fields and other industries around there. I believe it could be done. We just need to know for sure, based on testing, if we can actually do something like that. But if you're talking 5 million gallons, that's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of people coming to Bryan and that sort of thing. So
I just tried to pick a figure big enough that it would
yeah, it's a big number.
cross the border of triggering all those concerns.
Well, obviously, the best way to get a starting point is to do a study of some kind to see if you can support that kind of industry, and then like they said, keep track of the water usage so you would know what you can and cannot handle. And I mean, you'd have to take into obviously the weather forecast and what year's rain was better than some, and what happens in a dry spell.
In your previous utility, did they provide water, or is it mostly electric?
Electric.
Electric only?
Yes.
Okay. Jim? Are you in favor of the 5 million gallon a day?
Well, I don't think, I personally, I don't see it as a problem. Yeah, it is a lot of water. But I mean, if you check and see what some of the industry we have now uses, I mean, they use a considerable amount of water. But the fact of the matter is we have the pumping capacity to handle it, and we also monitor. As a matter of fact, fairly recently, and I can't quote it right off the top of my head, but we're putting in a monitoring system. It was kind of comforting to me because of the threat that was going on at the time with the potential drawdown of the aquifer. But the water level is monitored. So I mean, if there would be anything, and it's the agricultural systems, the irrigation systems, they pump a lot of water, and they'll even in the seasons when they decide to use irrigation systems, you'll see drawdown on the aquifer, but then it'll come back because they don't go long term with that. But no, to answer your question, I don't see a problem. I really don't.
Bryan uses about 1.1 million gallons a day. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
About 30 million a month.
30 million a month.
Correct.
So is that a burden to do another 5 million a day on top of that? Are you guys prepared for that? Do you know?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a burden. We would have to make sure that we have the pumps in good condition and a backup system in case we couldn't supply water to our normal consumers. But right now, like Jim said, I mean, we're all set for it. So it's just a matter of somebody coming in and wanting to do it. But to base what we're going on, the commissioners are also doing a study. Right now, the House just passed House Bill 6, which gives us a ton of grant money that we can apply for to do these water quality and quantity studies to make sure something like this is feasible or not to protect our ecosystem.
What do you guys do to protect water from contamination? I think there's 7 wells in Bryan. Is that right? You guys 7 wells?
Well, they run tests regularly. Not the well site necessarily, but in different areas of the town, they'll draw samples and test them.
Now we did just retrofit a couple of the wells that we approved to do water quality tests on and real-time water levels as well.
The staff share that with you guys regularly then?
Yeah. Kevin out there, he presented it to us and we approved it by the board.
Thanks.
Do you think that that's communicated well to the public?
If you watch our meetings, yeah.
On cable TV?
On cable TV, that's right. If you guys ever do a story on it, I mean, you guys always come to our meetings, so if people call and ask, I'm sure we're not hanging up the phone on them. So I've talked to quite a few people that have asked me about the water and that sort of thing. So we're always here to help and educate the public on what we're doing.
Any other comments?
A lot of that, is just basically is no news is good news. But like when something happened, like the Flint water crisis, that got a lot of people thinking. And I remember even when we replaced the water line on South Walnut Street, there's a lot of older parts of town that still have lead services to the house. And even though we're not in the business to replace services, you make recommendations because it's a potential source of a problem.
Good point, because that was a pretty big project, wasn't it?
It
All the way
was.
down South
It
Walnut.
was.
You have another one coming up? Are you aware?
Yes. You'd ask me. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. Yes, we do.
You could drag Kevin up here. Now.
Yeah, I know he's got the
He's not up for
answer.
election though.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You can
There
just
you
grab
go.
your Kevin once for one question.
But we do replace water line every year. We have a program going on to replace those old 4-inch lines, and it's mostly for firefighter capacity and also homeowner insurance rates, because we do get based on that. So whenever we get rid of those 4-inch lines, it's a good deal. I mean, it really helps out the city. So.
I guess I'd like to. I was going to go somewhere else, but we had a question submitted from the community that they have an impression that BMU is constantly taking out loans and bonds to do infrastructure, and it worries them that BMU is in debt. So, I guess the question is are you aware of this? How do you manage the fiscal mix of how projects are financed? Do you have any opinion about the ability of BMU to survive a recession, for example, with its outstanding obligations? And we can go in whatever order whoever wants to talk first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean it's part of our job to keep an eye on the spending. As far as the infrastructure goes, it's obviously important to maintain that. It's because your reliability falls into that. Voltage upgrades, substation upgrades, things like that. And of course, everything nowadays is expensive. $250,000 for a new bucket truck is not out of the question at all anymore.
I'll remind our candidates to speak up again.
Oh, sorry.
So
Sorry.
the audience can hear you. They no microphones pushing anything out that way. So continue to speak up.
Where was I?
Sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, we're aware. Obviously, we're made aware of the loans and the spending at the board meetings, and I mean it's our responsibility to question it and to approve it if we see fit.
Have you said no to anything in your term?
I said no. Yeah, yes I have. You're gonna ask me when, but yeah, it's, it was. Matter of fact, I think it was on the vehicle purchases.
Well, for Pauline Putnam, our board has, a set policy. So our policy is 50-50, 50% loan, 50% consumer finance.
Have you looked into BPA's policy? Do you know what it is?
No, I don't.
There currently is. We make a decision at that time what we want to do based on where our cash flow's at. And, a lot of the time these loans make sense because they're only a percent or two. And it just makes more sense to get the loan rather than to finance it all up front. It doesn't mean that we're in debt or anything. We have a minimum cash flow policy that we just approved recently. And the same thing with electric and so forth. The fact that we're in debt is not.
How many days of cash on hand does BMU have?
It's a complex formula that I had some time thinking over, but I believe it is about 6.5 months. If we were to have a tornado come through right through the whole infrastructure, we got to be able to pay the bills, rebuild, and that sort of thing. So if I remember right, it's right around 6 months for electric and that sort of thing.
In your time on the board, have you said no to anything?
I don't believe I've said no, but I have abstained from a vote.
May I ask what it is?
It was during a House bill support. They asked the board to support going against a House bill. At that time, the paper was given to me right around 4 o'clock. We have a board meeting at 5. I simply just didn't have enough time to read the policy and read what the House bill was about. So I abstained from the vote just because I didn't know enough about it to vote on it. But it did pass through. The other board members were able to read it. So.
Okay, I'd like to switch gears a little bit. Probably the biggest question I have from BPA members is that we're the only city in Ohio that has the structure we have. We have a
Oh.
strong mayor charter government, and we have a separate utility. And there's certainly some duplication of effort there. And there's a relationship between the city and BMU, which is generally good, though. I mean, it certainly made Ron's paper no more than 6 months ago that, yeah, they got issues with how employees were compensated between the two and so forth. So if it made sense for the community, would you be willing to vote yourself out of a job, approve a new city charter, and cease being a separate board? Like, if that happened in your next term, would you do it if you thought it was the right thing?
I had mixed feelings about it because when I did become a board member, we're one of the very few cities that actually have a separate utility board compared to the city council. But our compensation isn't that much, and what we provide, and we're able to hone in on certain projects that maybe city council would have too much to do, or so many other projects going on. But I see what you're saying. We're duplicating efforts because everything we do has to go through city council as well. That's just most of it. I wouldn't say all of it, but most of it does have to go back through city council. But we do work with them and get things resolved. So, I guess to answer your question, no, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah.
Well, the way I see it is you would want a board that would be more digging into the details and be more knowledge about it before it would be passed on to the city council, so that they could feel confident in the previous board knowing that if it was a good thing or not. So with that said, with the duplication, I could see money being saved. So I guess if maybe a separate committees or something on the city council,
That's what most communities do. Yeah.
then I would be all for that.
All right, so you would be willing to vote yourself out of a job too. Jeff?
I guess I can't say that I'm for it. I guess that would be up to the voters on the charter change.
Yeah.
Personally, I think the utility board's important, that even with a 5-man board, because there's a lot of things to be considered. There's a lot of things to pay attention to. There's a lot of decisions to be made. I've been the board chair this year, and I get in on a lot of this stuff actually before some of the other board members do, and I stay fairly busy.
How many
So
hours a week do you suppose you spend on BMU?
Oh, lots. No, I don't know. It's gosh, I don't know. 20 hours a week, maybe. I don't know.
So it's like a half-time job.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, there's weeks. There's weeks. I mean, there was times, for instance, when our director resigned a few years back. In the interim period between the directors, it was my responsibility to sign bills and POs and deal with the everyday stuff down there, things that came up from the employees, and it seemed like I was down there quite a bit. But the need was there. Well, now we obviously have a director, and that's the requirement's not there. He takes care of the thing. So, other than him maybe calling me with questions or approval on an expenditure, something like that. It's not regular. It's not a regular 20-hour job, I guess, but it probably balances out.
And that, I guess the question is, if you work in Paulding, do you have 15 to 20 hours a week to devote to BMU?
I think I would, yeah. I would have to maybe do more weekends rather than during the week, or dedicate more evenings to it. But
Does the board have an attendance policy? This is a question. I don't know the answer. Does the board have an attendance policy?
Well, can I just add something to what
Sure,
you're
yeah,
saying? I just, and maybe I wasn't clear enough on what I said, because like I am the board chair.
Right.
A lot of the stuff that comes from the utility for approval to the board. I mean, if it's not scheduled, if it's not put on the agenda for the regular scheduled meeting, a lot of times I'll get a phone call, and depending on what the decision is to be made, I may make the call myself, and the board members may not find out about it until the next meeting. I mean, because it's not necessary, if you know what I mean. So a person that would take the responsibility of a board chair, yeah, you're going to spend a few more hours. Normally, a board member that's not the chairman, there's less responsibility between meetings.
Derek said 15 and you said 20, so it seems like 15 to 20.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time learning.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm new, so I
Fair.
spend a lot of time trying to figure out.
Yeah,
what's
we have a lot
going
of
on
things to
what's-
read and study, and
Yeah.
it helps us make decisions.
I just want to mention that the questions that are being asked today are not the opinion of the Chamber of Commerce or its board of directors. These are questions that are submitted to us through the community, and we don't always agree with them. We just feel like they are something that the community wants to hear. So I do want to mention that. I forgot to mention that at the beginning, but these are not the opinion of even the Bryan Times.
Correct.
So
Correct.
just I want to clarify that.
And I do have a question that came from a resident, might even be a BMU employee, I'm not sure, but as I understand it, the city and the BPA share an attorney, and you
Correct.
share a clerk treasurer,
Correct.
but not an HR person, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Is that something that needs to be considered?
I guess that's up to the city side to consider that. We have an HR on the BMU side. The city side does not have an HR representative. I believe everything goes back to the mayor. But that's kind of up to them. We realized we needed an HR probably many years ago. So we got one, and the city decided they didn't want one. So.
Would you be willing to share that position since you're sharing?
Well,
numbers?
I could say because I was there while I was an employee when the position was opened up, and I believe that was the original intention. At least I think Steve Casebeer was the director then, and I think that was the original intention, is that the person would serve both sides, the utility and the city side. And I can't tell you because, like I say, I was just an employee then, but something on the city side made them decide not to participate. So it was their decision. It's set up so as a result we have HR and they don't.
Well, speaking of inefficiencies, can you think of anything that BMU could do better? Jim?
Wow.
Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to.
Better, cheaper?
You know,
better,
I don't know. You know,
That's
that's the
it.
thing. I don't know. I mean, comparatively speaking, because our electric service is reliable. Our customer service is there's nobody out there that offers a customer service we do. Like I say, the reliability. I don't know. I guess if there was something we come up with, I'm sure we'd deal with it.
Have you guys ever done like an anonymous survey of employees to see if they have any ideas of what's inefficient?
We've had suggestions from time to time. I'm sure.
Curious.
I can't tell you for sure that the suggestions were acted on. Maybe they were. I don't know.
And there's a chain of command that goes with that as well. Obviously, the employees can call the board, but I assume it would go to the director of utilities, which would then relay that information to the president of the board and the rest of the board. So there is a chain of command that we follow when it comes to that sort of thing.
I guess the question still, you can answer it now since you're talking. Is there anything BMU can do better? What is it?
I would love to see more of the water lines being replaced. Get rid of those old 4 inches. They're just inefficient. I pumped a fire at one of those 4 inches, and it's not the water quantity that we need to fight a fire. And it also helps with home insurance rates. So we have a plan in place to replace those lines, and we can only do so much with the budget we have and that sort of thing. I wish the dollar went farther, right? To be able to do that sort of thing. But the guys do stay busy with projects, and they're always improving the communities.
Annette, any ideas of what BMU could do better? You're coming in to change things, right? So you should have something.
As a consumer, never had any problem with the electricity, none of the water, I think my sewer water lines were replaced, probably now 10 years ago, I'm thinking. I don't know, maybe longer. My only concern is just the cable TV, and compared to,
Well, let me ask you maybe to help you moving that along. What kind of preparation have you done to run for BPA? Have you attended meetings, talked to other BPA members, the director? How much of that have you done, background, homework?
Well, actually, I first, before this year, because the meetings are always at 5 o'clock. And my old work hours, I didn't get off work until 4:30, so I wouldn't get home until 5 or 5, quarter after 5, so I could never really go to any of the meetings. And then I seen where there was an open seat, so I thought, my hours changed to, we get off at 4 o'clock now, so I get home now at 4:30. So I applied for the open seat that Derek received, and just talking with different people, tell him about the position, and tell him about my experience, and I was encouraged to run. So I decided, okay, I'll give it a whirl, and decided, okay, if I'm going to do this. So then I've just started going to the meetings just to get a feel for it. And then, so I really don't have a lot of experience because, like I said, my work hours just recently changed.
What
So we
was
will be able to get to the meetings.
So
at
I will
5
be able to
o'clock.
get to the meetings, yes.
Okay.
you said you were encouraged to run. May we ask who encouraged you to run?
There were several people that I had talked to that just repeated, said, I think you should run. I think you'd be good for it. And, given my experience just in the electric side of things and the things that I do, I convinced myself that I would be too. So that's why I'm here.
Going back a little bit, we talked about development, we talked about shovel-ready lots and so forth. Do you think that we are competitive with every community in the area?
As far as
Helping development, helping enable somebody to get power, water, road, anything that is an interface between them doing a project and not.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously permits that go along with all of this, and they submit the business to us, and same thing with Dustin out there. He's back there now. He just went through this whole process, and we went through this whole process, and I hope it went all smooth for him. But there are permits and stuff you got to go through. But where he was sitting at, it was basically all ready to go. And as far as the lots that we're selling and the price per acre that we're selling at, I believe is very competitive. It's some of the lowest in the area, actually. When I look at my personal side, I got some lots that I'm selling more than BMU selling them for on the personal side. So it's very competitive as far as the cost per acre to develop the land out there. And of course, our electric rates are the cheapest in the area, so that always helps.
Yeah. Any comments? Are we competitive with everybody else in the area?
Well, I the only thing I really have to compare really for me is, kind of what our consumer rates are versus what, BMUs are. And I do the math on my bill and can kind of know what we do with ours, and it's very competitive, yeah.
Jim?
Yeah, I think we're competitive. I think we have the infrastructure that for most anybody that would want to build or come to Bryan, we'd be ready for them. I think that's something that that the utility would have to work with the city council and the city side on, because it's when an industry shows an interest. They don't want to talk to just the utility, or they don't want to talk to just the city officials. They want to talk to the whole group. So it's kind of a joint venture thing, I guess. But yeah, I feel like we're every bit competitive as anybody in the area. We're in a good position.
I think we're getting ready to wrap it up. Tom Sproul was also invited.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that. So, I will mention that since you brought it up.
Yeah.
Tom Sprout was invited. He had made a commitment a long time ago, over a year ago, he shared with me, to be out of town this week, so he could not join us today. He did send his condolences and said he was sorry he couldn't be here. He really wanted to, but he had made that commitment. He wanted to hold true with that commitment. So, before you wrap up, I just want to mention that November 5th is Election Day. Jim is running unopposed for the one seat. Annette, Derek, and Tom are running for the 2 other seats on the board of directors, on the board. So,
And to wrap it up, we thought we'd give you a chance to say why you're the best candidate. We'll start with Annette.
Well, obviously, I'm fresh. I've never served on any kind of board whatsoever, but I do have experience with what my board expects from me, my department, and or other employees. And plus I have just all kinds of accounting experience, especially more so in the electric part of it. I know what it takes to keep the rates reasonable, fair, steady. I know, like I said, what it's like to come up with strategic planning, construction work plans, loans, when to borrow money, when not to borrow money. I watch cash flow, stuff like that. So I just feel based on experience that I would be a good fit for the board. Sure, I'm inexperienced on this side of it, but I am experienced on the other side of it. So I would like to become, I feel it would just round me out as an individual altogether.
Jim, and then we'll go to Derek.
You really put me on the spot when I'm running unopposed.
Again, thank you for showing up. We appreciate
Yeah,
Maybe you don't need to say anything.
yeah.
Just vote.
I don't know. It's like I say, almost about 6 years ago when I decided to run, and I had been retired for like 2 years, and I guess I'd always toyed with the idea of running. And,
Because you're a lineman, right?
yeah, I was a lineman
for
for
B&U?
30 years in the utility. I don't know. I guess I just wasn't ready to leave at the time. As far as why I'm the best candidate right now, my experience, I guess. When I left the utility with 30 years, I had a basic knowledge of what went on down there. But in almost 6 years of being a board member, I've learned a lot of the rest of it, and that's something. And it's like Annette says, I was in the same spot 6 years ago, and you're sitting here, you're trying to think, well, but you learn fast, and there is a lot to learn, and there's a lot to remember. But if you really become involved and be a good board member, it's worthwhile. It's a good job.
Thanks, Jim. Derek.
Yeah, I do have an experience in the accounting background that I've been doing for 11 years. And I just love to be involved in the community and help out any way I can. And it's more than just going to the meetings and saying yes to everything, right? I believe in working together with the city and collaborating with everybody in the county, as well. When we're doing this water study, reach out to the county, reach out to everybody else, and let's all do this together. And that's part of it as well, is just everybody coming together and doing their part and making this a better community. And that's really what I'm after, is making Bryan, Ohio the best place it can be.
Thank you, candidates, for coming today.
Thank you.
And we want to again thank BMU for taping this, and again, it will be showing on Channel 4 at various times. And we thank BMU and their crew for being here today. We also thank the Bryan Times for being a part of their sponsors, and we especially thank Stony Ridge for hosting us. That's all for today. My name is Dan Harris, and we're signing off.